Your 20s and 30s are not about having everything perfectly mapped out. They're not a final exam on adulthood, and they're definitely not a deadline for success. This phase of life is about building leverage, the kind that quietly compounds through skills, habits, and self-trust. The pressure to figure it all out early is one of the biggest lies people believe, and it causes more paralysis than progress. Leverage starts with skills, not flashy titles, not short-term wins, but skills that make you valuable in multiple rooms. Skills that don't disappear when a job ends or a trend fades. Learning how to communicate clearly, solve problems, manage your emotions, and think long term will outlast any specific career path. In your 20s and 30s, your job isn't to chase certainty, it's to stack capabilities. Every skill you develop becomes a tool you carry forward, and over time, those tools create options. Options are freedom. Habits are the second form of leverage, and they matter more than motivation ever will. Motivation is unpredictable, habits are dependable. The small, boring things you do daily are shaping your future far more than the big decisions you overthink. How you start your mornings, what you consume mentally, how you respond to stress, how often you keep promises to yourself, these patterns are quietly deciding the quality of your life. You don't need perfect habits. You need consistent ones. Discipline isn't about intensity, it's about repetition. Self-trust is the most underrated asset you can build in this season. Self-trust comes from doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. Every time you follow through, you send yourself a signal. I can rely on me. Over time, that belief becomes unshakable. Without self-trust, you hesitate, second, guess, and look outward for permission. With it, you move forward even when the path isn't clear. Confidence doesn't come from having all the answers, it comes from knowing you'll figure things out as you go. This is also the stage of life where comparison can do the most damage. Everyone seems ahead. Someone is earning more, traveling more, achieving more, but comparison ignores context and timing. It turns progress into pressure and curiosity into anxiety. The truth is, most people are improvising. The ones who win later aren't the ones who moved the fastest, they're the ones who kept moving after others quit. Progress is not linear, and early speed means nothing without direction. Your 20s and 30s are for experimentation, not perfection. You are allowed to try, fail, pivot, and start again. Each attempt teaches you something about what works, what doesn't, and who you are becoming. Mistakes made now are tuition, not life sentences. The real risk is playing it safe for too long and confusing comfort with security. Growth requires discomfort, and discomfort is a sign that you're expanding. Another hard truth is that clarity follows action, not the other way around. Waiting to feel ready is a trap. Readiness is built by doing. The more you act, the more information you gather, and the clearer your direction becomes. Action creates feedback. Feedback creates refinement. Refinement creates mastery. This process can't be rushed, but it can be trusted. Ultimately, this season is about laying invisible foundations. No applause, no guarantees, no instant validation. Just steady effort, quiet learning, and internal growth. If you focus on building skills, strengthening habits, and honoring your word to yourself, you won't just find your way, you'll create it. And years from now, what once felt uncertain will look intentional, simply because you kept going. Time is your greatest unfair advantage, but only if you stop wasting it on comparison, comfort, and distractions. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they trade their time for things that feel good in the moment and cost them everything in the long run. Time doesn't disappear suddenly. It leaks away in small, careless choices that feel harmless until years have passed. Comparison is the first thief. It convinces you that you're behind when you're not, and ahead when you shouldn't slow down. It keeps you watching other people's lives instead of building your own. The more you measure yourself against someone else's timeline, the less energy you have for your own progress. Comparison turns focus into anxiety and ambition into self-doubt. Time spent obsessing over what others are doing is time stolen from becoming who you could be. Comfort is the second trap, and it's far more dangerous because it feels safe. Comfort tells you that tomorrow is a better day to start, that you deserve rest before effort, that stability matters more than growth. But comfort doesn't protect you, it slowly weakens you. Every time you choose what's easy over what's necessary, you delay the life you say you want. Growth demands discomfort, repetition, and patience. Comfort asks for nothing and gives even less. Distractions are the quiet killers. They don't announce themselves as destructive. They arrive as entertainment, noise, and endless stimulation. Hours disappear scrolling, reacting, consuming information you'll never use. Distraction keeps you busy but unproductive, informed but unskilled, entertained but unfulfilled. The ability to focus deeply is becoming rare, which means it's becoming incredibly valuable. Protecting your attention is how you protect your future. When you stop comparing, you reclaim clarity. When you step out of comfort, you build resilience. When you eliminate distractions, you unlock momentum. Suddenly, time starts working for you instead of against you. Small daily actions begin to compound. Skills sharpen, confidence grows, progress becomes visible not overnight, but inevitably. Time rewards those who respect it. If you treat it casually, it leaves quietly. If you invest it deliberately, it multiplies. You don't need more hours, you need fewer leaks. Decide what deserves your attention and let everything else go. Because years from now, the difference between regret and freedom won't be luck or intelligence. It will be how you chose to spend your time when no one was forcing you to choose at all. Discipline beats motivation. Boring consistency creates extraordinary outcomes. Discipline beats motivation because motivation is emotional, temporary, and unreliable. It shows up when things feel exciting, when progress is visible, when the outcome feels close. Discipline shows up when none of that is true. It doesn't ask how you feel. It doesn't wait for the perfect mood or the right moment. It acts because a decision was already made. That's why discipline wins. It removes emotion from execution. Motivation feels powerful at the start, but it fades quickly. Life interrupts, energy drops, doubt creeps in. When motivation disappears, most people stop. Discipline is what keeps you moving when the initial excitement is gone. It's the ability to do the work even when it feels boring, repetitive, or inconvenient. And that's where real results are built, not in moments of inspiration, but in long stretches of unglamorous effort. Boring consistency is uncomfortable because it doesn't provide instant feedback. You don't see dramatic changes day to day. You don't get applause for showing up quietly. There's no rush, no novelty, no recognition. Just repetition, but repetition is how momentum is created. Each small action reinforces the next, and over time, those actions stack into something powerful. What feels insignificant today becomes unstoppable over years. Extraordinary outcomes are rarely the result of extraordinary days. They come from ordinary days done well, over and over again, training when you don't feel like it, learning when progress feels slow, saving when spending would feel better, choosing structure when chaos would be easier. These choices don't look impressive in the moment, but they create a gap between you and everyone who quits when it gets dull. Discipline also builds identity. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who keeps commitments. That self-image changes how you operate in every area of life. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop relying on external pressure. You act because that's who you are. Once identity shifts, consistency becomes natural instead of forced. People often chase intensity because it feels productive. Long hours, sudden bursts of effort, dramatic resets. But intensity without consistency burns out. Consistency without intensity compounds. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the right things repeatedly. Small steps taken daily outperform big steps taken occasionally. In the end, discipline isn't about restriction, it's about freedom. It frees you from dependence on mood, from starting over again and again, from the frustration of wasted potential. Boring consistency may not feel exciting, but it builds a life that is, And that's why discipline will always beat motivation every single time. Most regret doesn't come from trying and failing. Failure hurts in the moment, but it teaches, sharpens, and often redirects you towards something better. The deeper, heavier regret comes from playing small, from knowing you had more in you, but chose safety, silence, and avoidance instead. It comes from the opportunities you didn't take because you didn't want to be judged, uncomfortable, or responsible for the outcome. Playing small feels reasonable. It disguises itself as being realistic, patient, or cautious. But underneath, it's often fear of being seen, fear of getting it wrong, fear of standing alone in your decisions. When you avoid responsibility, you also avoid growth. You stay protected, but you stay stuck. Over time, that protection becomes a cage you built yourself. Failure is loud and obvious. You know when it happens. Regret from playing small is quiet. It accumulates slowly, day by day, through hesitation and delay. It shows up in the questions you never asked, the ideas you never shared, the risks you talked yourself out of. Years later, it surfaces as a lingering sense that you settled not because you had to, but because you chose comfort over courage. Taking responsibility is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. When you own your choices, you also own the results. There's no one else to blame, no external reason to hide behind, but responsibility is also empowering. The moment you accept that your life is shaped by your actions, you reclaim control. You stop waiting for permission. You stop outsourcing your future to circumstances or other people. Playing small limits your potential long before it limits your outcomes. You begin to shrink your goals to match your confidence instead of expanding your confidence to meet your goals. You stop challenging yourself, and eventually you stop trusting yourself. The cost isn't just missed success, it's missed self-respect. Knowing you could have tried and didn't is far heavier than knowing you tried and failed. Failure says, I went for it. Playing small says, I stayed safe. One builds resilience, the other builds resentment, often toward yourself. Responsibility doesn't mean everything will work out. It means you commit to showing up fully, regardless of the result. It means choosing effort over excuses and ownership over avoidance. When you take responsibility, even setbacks feel purposeful because they move you forward. In the end, most people don't regret the risks they took and failed at. They regret the version of themselves they never allowed to exist, the ideas left unexplored, the courage left unused. Growth requires risk, and risk requires responsibility. Choosing that path may be uncomfortable now, but it's far lighter than carrying the weight of regret later. Your future identity is not something you wake up and suddenly discover one day. It's being shaped quietly, right now, by what you tolerate, what you repeat, and what you continue to delay. These choices may seem small, almost invisible, but they are writing the story of who you are becoming, whether you're paying attention or not. What you tolerate teaches you what you believe you deserve. The conversations you allow, the behaviors you excuse, the standards you lower, all of it sends a message. Every time you accept disrespect, chronic stress, or a situation you know isn't aligned with your values, you normalize it. Over time, tolerance becomes identity. You stop seeing these conditions as temporary and begin to see them as just how life is. Raising your standards isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. The moment you stop tolerating what drains you, you create space for what strengthens you. What you repeat becomes your default. Repetition turns actions into habits and habits into character. The thoughts you rehearse, the routines you follow, the choices you make when no one is watching, these are the building blocks of your future self. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. If you repeat avoidance, you become avoidant. If you repeat discipline, you become dependable. Identity is not defined by one big decision, but by thousands of small ones made consistently. Delay is the most dangerous habit of all because it feels harmless. Putting things off doesn't look like failure. It looks like patience, waiting, or planning. But delay compounds just like action does, only in the opposite direction. Every time you postpone a hard conversation, a necessary change, or a meaningful step forward, you reinforce hesitation. You teach yourself that discomfort is something to avoid rather than move through. Over time, delay turns into doubt, and doubt turns into stagnation. The uncomfortable truth is that your future self will not magically be more disciplined, more confident, or more courageous unless you practice those traits now. There is no version of you waiting in the future who suddenly shows up ready to act. That version is being built in real time through today's choices. Who you become tomorrow depends on how you handle what's in front of you today. Change doesn't require dramatic transformation. It requires awareness and honesty. Notice what you're tolerating that's costing you peace. Notice what you're repeating that's keeping you stuck. Notice what you keep delaying even though you know it matters. Small corrections made consistently can alter the entire direction of your life. Your future identity is not a mystery, it's a pattern in progress. Choose carefully what you allow, what you practice, and what you postpone because one day you'll look back and realize you were becoming someone all along.